Morning decisions. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
Get business done with the new American Express Graphite Business Cash Unlimited card. With unlimited 2% cash back on all eligible purchases. Unlimited 5% cash back on flights and prepaid hotels booked through American Express Travel Online. And a flexible spending capacity that can grow with your business. You'll have the confidence to keep building. Apply today and earn a welcome offer of $1,500 cash back after you spend $50,000 in qualifying purchases on your new card within the first 6 months of card membership. Terms apply. Learn more at go.amex/graphite.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast instead of doom scrolling? Smart move. Another smart move? Getting help from one of State Farm's 19,000 local agents when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Hey everyone, it's Jay Scott. It is The Hook Rocks, the ultimate rock community podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. We always do appreciate it. Always love when you stop by and give us a listen and see what we're talking about and who we're chatting with. We are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a great network of music-related podcasts, including the official Metallica podcast, The Metallica Report. You can find them at pantheonpodcast.com, as well as a whole bunch of other music-related podcasts, and including my friends too as well, the Shout Out Loudcast boys, Tom and Zeus, the #1 Kiss podcast. So check that out. Check them out on all social media apps at Pantheon Pods, and you can do the same with the Hook Rocks as well on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. Just search up the Hook Rocks, as well as our new website, thehookracks.com. Don't forget to set your app to automatic download so you get the latest episode right to your phone. We've had some awesome guests in the month of May. We have Michael Anthony on, talking the anniversary of 1984 and what led up to that, including the US Festival, which we are celebrating this coming weekend, 41 years after the fact. We also talked with Richie Kotzen about his new single, Cheap Shots, which was awesome as well, and a whole bunch of other shows. And we've been doing these anniversary podcasts since the start of the year, and we've had Stephen Pearcy talking Out of the Cellar, Vinny Appice talking The Last in Line. We had Dee Snider talking Stay Hungry. And of course, I just mentioned Michael Anthony. And instead of 40 years, we're going to be talking 35 years with our latest guest, an album that is regarded as one of the best debut albums of that decade. And when you consider all the albums that were released in the 80s, that's high praise because it doesn't get much bigger than Skid Row's debut album in 1989. And I'd like to welcome Dave Snake Sabo on the podcast. What's happening, man? How are you?
Hey, wow. I can't believe you read that or you memorized that whole intro without reading it off a sheet or a teleprompter. That was impressive.
You know, I do 3 of these a week, so it kind of just rolls off the tongue.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. What a great intro as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. I mean, this is such a great album. And it meant so much to people from my generation. Obviously, it meant a lot to you guys because it was
right. I was going to say,
yeah. And it defined the time. It was one of the albums that defined the time back then. And we're going to get into what was going on before the album itself, and how it impacted you guys right then and there, and then kind of what happened after and the direction you guys went in after the debut. But first, we always ask the same first question every time we have a first-time guest on the podcast. And that is really the essence of our show. Just like every great rock song has a hook that pulls you in, every rock fan has a moment, whether it's a band, an album, a performance, or a song that hooked them on rock and roll. What was it for you?
Oh, my gosh. It was Kiss, and it has to do with so many different things involving that band. But the thing that literally set me on the path to wanting to do this for a living was seeing Kiss at Madison Square Garden on December 16th, 1977. And it was that show where I walked in being a Kiss fan, and I walked out wanting to be a member of Kiss, and or close to it, somehow in the same uh, business. And I don't like to use that word, but doing what they were doing, I saw the connection that they had with the audience, myself included, but there was 20,000 people there, or however many people, and everybody, we were all together in the same sort of this zone of, we were so focused on this larger than life extravaganza that was happening before our eyes, and it was almost too big and too overwhelming to believe that what I was watching was happening within the confines of this arena. It was explosive, bombastic, life-changing, life-altering, all those phrases and adjectives that you could use to describe a teenager's life being completely altered. And by the time I left that show and was on the train back to South Amboy, New Jersey from Penn Station, I had a very, to me, I had a very clear idea that that's what I wanted to do on some level. Like and I don't mean I wanted to, go out and be a carbon copy of that. I just wanted to have that experience of playing in front of people and having that connection and just having a communication through music that I'd never seen anything like that before. Everything about it, I had their records and I loved their records. I was, obsessed with listening to their records every day. And I hadn't picked up a guitar yet. I was just a fan, as I still am. But that inspired me to want to be a musician, and to create music that hopefully could touch people, even in a small way compared to what they did that night and continued to do, up until, still to this day.
The first album I ever bought was Kiss Lick It Up, and I was 9 years old. And that was obviously without the makeup. So that was kind of my introduction to them. And then about 2-3 months later, I was at a friend's house that moved away from the area. And me and my brother went to his house and spent the day there. And he had Kiss Alive 2 on vinyl. And I remember opening up the gatefold and staring at that for what felt like forever. Like, what is this? This is insane. This is incredible. At that age, I didn't know how to process what I was seeing, but I just knew it was incredible.
Right. Well, for me, I don't think that at such a young age we were as distracted as our youth is today, by so much different media coming and assaulting our senses. Our lives consisted of, okay, you go to school and maybe you do or you don't do your homework, and you go outside and play stickball or wiffle ball or whatever you do, throw the football around, play basketball, hang out with your friends, get on your bike. And but me being in a house of 4 older brothers, there was music being played continuously since for as long as I can remember, at a very, very, very early age. My oldest brother is 20 years older than me. So from the time I escaped the womb, I was, being bombarded with everything from Elvis Presley and Little Richard to, to the Beach Boys and Motown and Otis Redding and the Stax records and, the AM radio hits of like the Beatles and the Stones and, Spooky Tooth. And I mean, I could go on Traffic. I could go Humble Pie. 10 years after, I could go on and on and on. And that was the one constant in our house, was that music was always being played. So every day was almost like a new discovery for me. And at the time I didn't know it, but that was the greatest education I think I ever received, was being able to be exposed to all this great music. And when you're that age, again, there's not so many, you're not being hit with so many distractions, as it is today. So discovering and music and, sort of having it be embedded within you, was a much different process. It wasn't forced. It was far more organic, and, it allowed me to just love music for music. There were no genres at that time. I didn't know, I didn't know that, what R&B and soul was compared to, pop radio and, what would become, what was hard rock music and stuff like that, or Southern rock. And it was all just great music to me, the Eagles and Lynyrd Skynyrd and the Outlaws and Molly Hatchet as I grew older, and Hendrix, and all these things had just a profound effect on me. And so that led to me at an early age getting turned on to Kiss. And I remember, I forget what record I traded for, but I traded in the 8th grade. I traded a guy in my gym class. His name was Mark Polak, and he had the first Kiss record. And it even had like Big Pen scribble on the back of it. But I traded him something for it. And immediately I couldn't wait to get home and listen to it. And from there, I got Dressed to Kill and Hotter Than Hell. And, but the game changer was Kiss Alive 1. That was the game changer. And that was the one where, man, I shut the door and closed the windows and cranked it as loud as it could go. And even though I was by myself in my bedroom, as many of us were when we were getting swallowed up by this cacophony of unbelievable sound and this experience, which was just completely enveloping. Every day that was on my turntable, and every day I stared at that album, and then, and then it turned into a gathering of friends, and, that record would go on, and it just stayed like that for a long time, and it built from there. And then I had the opportunity to go see them at Madison Square Garden at such a young age. And that's, like I said, that was the turning point of, I went from being a 13-year-old kid who played baseball and basketball and thought that was my future, to being a 13-year-old kid who said, I'm going to figure out a way to play music somehow.
I can relate to what you just said, because I had an older brother, and him and his friends would always be bringing music into the house. And, when I tell people that I've been listening to this music as far back as kindergarten, they look at me like, come on. I'm like, no, it's because I had all these older kids in the neighborhood, and they'd bring the records over and listen. And it was by accident, basically, I got into this music. And when you also correlate that with my grandfather being a lounge piano player back in the days of the speakeasies in Chicago.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I used to play for the Mobsters, and his Sam Giancana, who took over for Al Capone, my grandfather was his favorite piano player. And so I always heard that every time I go there. He'd be playing the big band stuff and all that music. And then, of course, the blues was always prevalent in Chicago. And the Blues Brothers was this big deal when I was a kid. So it was, it was very inexpensive to be happy when you were a kid back then.
Boy, what a great way. You're absolutely right. Although the idea of going to Sam Goody's or Platypus or Harmony Hut or whatever it was, at that age to buy a record, I mean, I had a paper route. It's not like they were sitting there and handing out stock options, for delivering the Star Ledger, or the home. So
I was the same way. I had a paper route too as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was washing cars and mowing lawns and delivering papers because I wanted to buy, Love Gun or Rock and Roll Over. Those records were the most important thing in the world to me, was getting my hands on those records. So I did whatever I could to put money in my pocket. But, that all comes from the education that I'm so grateful for, that I got from, like my older brothers and my mom too. My mom was a huge music fan. So she played her stuff as well. And that's how I knew about the Andrews Sisters and Sinatra and, things of that, ilk, Dizzy Gillespie and, Louis Armstrong. So it goes way back.
Yeah, it does. And it's very enriching. And when you think about what you used to do, when you weren't in Little League sports, you were at the park, someone's basement or someone's backyard, riding your bikes around, and you had a boombox and you were listening to music, or you were talking about the baseball team or in our case, the Cubs. It was
Right.
Have $1,000 phone in our hand. We didn't have to have the best shoes. We were just happy being amongst each other, just having these conversations about music, sports, chicks, back in the day.
Yeah, man. I mean, we would get in arguments about Kiss versus Led Zeppelin in middle school. Like that was, people would bag. I mean, look, Led Zeppelin to this day still has fanatical fans, but so does Kiss. And there would be these arguments, and man, oh, Jimmy Page pisses all over Ace Frehley. Oh, screw you. Ace Frehley kills Jimmy Page, and that's the beauty of music when you're passionate about it, because you will defend your heroes to the end because you love what they do so much. And what a great feeling that is, to have something in your life that affects you in such a way that you are moved to defend it with violence. And it's music. It's not politics. It's not religion. We're not going to shoot each other. We'll arm wrestle before we shoot each other. You know what I mean? Like that's what's so great about music, is that it supersedes any other sort of cultural barriers. It supersedes religion. It supersedes political divisiveness. It supersedes geography, politics. It supersedes it all. It goes way beyond that. And it's the ultimate communicator. And, I mean, I found no greater way to garner friendships, like lifelong friendships, than bonding over music, bonding over bands that you love. I still talk to my idiot friends from Jersey that I went to grammar school and middle school and high school with. And we still remember that night we had Rock and Roll Over blaring at your mother's house before we went to the playpen and got shit-faced. It's like, these are things like that plays a significant role in your life, in the development of who you are. And Kiss, especially for me, their music still has left such a vast imprint on my life, and will always. That will never fade. That hasn't waned in any way whatsoever. The memories I have still exist as prevalent today as they were back then.
I always say, if the world was a big giant rock concert, it'd be a much more peaceful and beautiful place.
Oh my God. I mean, like I said, Look, we've been really, really fortunate in the sense that we've been able to travel the world many times over and see people and of different cultures and meet the people who have been affected by our music, which is one of the greatest, most humbling compliments you could possibly receive, is that something that you helped create actually has had an effect on a person that's halfway around the world. And they're somehow being moved by this thing that, again, that you helped create in my, my best friend's house in Toms River, New Jersey, and in Rachel's parents' house, many moons ago. And so traveling around the world, we got to experience that, and it's quite amazing. But the one thing that stood out for me, and it kind of really solidified it in my brain about how music was the ultimate communicator, positive and communicator of togetherness and of love. And it was, we happened to be in Moscow, Russia, in, I believe it was August of '89, and we were asked to be a part of what was called the Moscow Music Peace Festival. And it was an incredible event. And it was held over 2 days in Lenin Stadium. And there was 75,000 people there. And there was, Bon Jovi and Ozzy and Motley Crue and the Scorpions and Cinderella and Skid Row and Gorky Park. And it was the first time that anything had been held on that scale in that venue by a bunch of bands that were, basically Western hard rock bands, if you think about it, right? So to be a part of that was incredibly humbling, but that's another story. But so one night we were walking around and it was late. It was probably about 2:00 in the morning, and we were in Red Square. I believe I was with a couple guys from our band and some other bands, and I remember David Bryan from Bon Jovi being there as well. And there was this guy, maybe, I don't know, 19, 20, 21, playing an acoustic guitar in Red Square, and he's playing Yesterday by the Beatles. And at one point, we just, locked eyes for a moment, and it hit me. Like, first of all, he's playing this beautiful song in Red Square in Moscow, Russia, who was the big bad monster, the enemy of the United States, and at the time, and as we were taught in school, that's the way it was. And luckily, the Cold War was coming to an end, and things were changing at that particular time, and it was an amazing period in history, because you could feel just a sort of unity burgeoning around the world. There was a sense of impending peacefulness that was starting to emerge, just by the sheer fact that you had a hard rock and heavy metal bands coming to Lenin Stadium, where the 1980 Olympics were held, that the U.S. Boycotted. It was so much history surrounding this. So this kid's playing Yesterday by the Beatles, and we make this eye contact, and he doesn't speak a word of English, but yet he's somehow articulating the words of one of the greatest songs by one of the greatest bands ever written, to a small group of people at Red Square at 2 a.m. And I was blown away. I was moved. I was mesmerized. I was so taken aback by this complete stranger in this foreign land, at such a late hour just moved me to where my knees buckled by singing this beautiful song and showing me the power of music and how it could bring completely different worlds together. And it made me realize that, again, that music supersedes all sorts of communication. And it shows even with how great of a tool it is to help children with autism or people with autism, how it breaks through barriers and breaks down barriers. And like you said earlier, if music was utilized in negotiations between, war-torn countries and things of that nature, we might be a lot more peaceful as a world. Not to get too political or anything like that, but the whole idea was just the power of music, I believe, is all powerful.
Absolutely. It is a superpower. Getting into the debut, the album was released in 1989. When were these songs first developed by you guys? When were these songs being first played? The songs that ended up on the album.
Well, Rachel and I started writing songs together in around late 1985. But we really started, things started moving in 86. And we started playing, we started doing some demos in 86, but nothing that I could remember that made the record. And we made some changes in the band. And Scotty Hill and Rob Affuso joined the band, and then we played more shows and more songs were written that did make the record. Youth Gone Wild was written. So pretty much everything that's on the first record was written before Sebastian was asked to join the band, with the exception of, I want to say, Making a Mess. But on the demo that we sent to Sebastian when he was in Toronto, I believe it had Youth Gone Wild, 18 in Life, Rattlesnake Shake, and one other song. And then we had written I Remember You just after Sebastian had joined the band, if I'm not mistaken. But we didn't want to play it for the band because we didn't think it fit. We didn't think it was for us. And it was almost like, Rachel and I would write to exercise that muscle and if the song was fit Skid Row, great. If it didn't, we would finish the song and kind of put it aside. And, but we ended up writing, all in all, probably 20 some songs for the first record. But the thing about I Remember You was we went into the rehearsal space, which was Rachel's parents' garage in Toms River. And, it was heated by propane heaters and stuff. And we all smoked back into it. It's terrible what we were doing to our lungs. But, we had just gotten together with management as well, with McGee Entertainment. And so Doc McGee and his brother Scott McGee, Scott was doing all of our, hands-on stuff, our day-to-day stuff. And so Rachel and I are like, well, we've got this song, but we're not very fond of it. And well, play it for us. So we play it for everybody. And we're like, we don't think it should be on the record. And everybody, band and management, looked at us and they were all like, if that's not on the record, we're not making a record. We're like, really? And so luckily, we were mistaken, Rachel and I. And it just goes to show you that sometimes you're just so close to something that you don't see it. And very thankful that we were outvoted on that one. And I guess like 85% of it was written before Sebastian came in, and then we finished it up, and we kept writing more songs and stuff. And like I said, we had at the time we had a tally of over 21 songs or something when we were ready to start recording the record, and it was I wouldn't say it was a super difficult process of paring it down to what would make the record. There was a couple disagreements here and there about a couple certain songs, maybe, but I think at the end of the day, we chose the right songs for that record. And who's to say, like, how can I sit there and say, well, if that song would have been on the record, things would have been different. I'm thankful for what it is and what it did for all of us. And the way the public responded to it was far surpassed any sort of little expectations that we had as a band. And every band always sits there and says how they want to sell bazillion records and tour and the enormo domes of the world. And we were no different. We all wanted to be the Rolling Stones. Every band wants to, I believe. But really, the thing that we hoped for the most, and I'm not even kidding about this, it's really true, is that we had all worked so many shitty jobs. Although the last job we had in the music store where Scotty and Rachel and I worked together was great. It was amazing. Which was Garden State Music, which is still open down in Toms River, and God bless them. But we were hoping to sell enough records so we'd be allowed to make another one. Like, that was really the thing. And if we could just do that and keep doing that, because the goal was we wanted to play music for a living, and we wanted to play our own music for a living, and we wanted to be able to make records and go on the road, and in any shape or form that was going to be. The goal was always to be on a major label, because there was it's not like it is today. Back then, there was a vast difference between, the major labels and independent labels. And this is no slight. There was amazing independent labels back then. But we wanted like, we're on a label that Led Zeppelin is on, AC/DC is on, and I'll never forget there were two people that were instrumental in signing us, Jason Flom and Dorothy Sisignano, who now is Dorothy Caravello, and they would call us up, and when they were courting us, if you will, and they were like, "Don't you want to see that big iconic A in the middle of your record?" And we were all like, "Yeah, yes, absolutely we do." And it was weird, because initially, and I don't know how many people notice or even care, but we were briefly signed to Geffen. And I'll never forget, we were at Rachel's parents' house at the rehearsal joint, which is the garage. We were at the garage, and we get a phone call from Doc McGee, and Doc goes, "Congratulations. You guys are now, officially have a record deal." We're like, "Yes." And he's like, "Welcome to Geffen Records." We're like, "Oh." And the reason being is because our experience with the whole showcasing for Geffen was less than overwhelming. we went in there and we played for, a couple of the A&R people, and they had brought a potential producer along with them. We were at SIR in New York. And so we played like 19 songs for them. And, they thought we had, out of the 19, they thought that we had maybe 2 songs. And one of them didn't even make the record. And so everything about that showcase felt wrong to us. They're a California label. We're a New Jersey band. We rehearsed in a garage. They wanted nothing to do with coming down to the garage. It's like, okay, well, this isn't going well. And we felt that because of our involvement with Bon Jovi and how much they had, John and Richie had played a part in helping us out and mentoring us, if you will, and giving us the most amazing advice and on songs and business and everything like that. And our being managed by Doc and, McGee Entertainment, Doc and Scott. We felt that they were doing us a favor. That's what it felt like. Or I shouldn't even say us. It felt like they were doing Doc and Scott and John and Richie a favor by signing us. And when you have that gut feeling, and it's not just you, but it's every guy in the band, and you hang up the phone and you have this grandiose vision in your head about that day that you find out that you've got a record deal. And it turns out to be exactly the opposite of that, where it's not a celebration, it's a disappointment. And it's like, oh no. Like, not only is it a disappointment, it's like, how do we get out of this? Because it felt to us like they wanted us to be Bon Jovi Jr. And we just, that's not who we were or are. And that's not who anybody wanted us to be. They wanted us to be Skid Row. So it took about 30 minutes of us being like really bummed out, and then calling Doc back and going, maybe it was longer than that. I don't even know. But it felt, regardless of how long it was, it felt like an eternity. And then we made the decision that we were going to call Doc back and say, we can't do this. And even that, the thought of doing that, of saying thanks, but no thanks to like this great record deal, because it was a great record deal. And they're a great company. It just wasn't for us. We knew that as a band. Even though we were, 21 years old, we just knew. And so we called Doc back and we're like, Doc, this feels terrible. They don't want us as Skid Row. They want, a Bon Jovi Jr. band. They don't care about, developing us or anything like that. And they're LA based. We're New Jersey. We need someone that gets us, that's going to, be at our shows and be supportive and the whole thing that you want when you sign a record deal or that you hope to get. And so Doc goes, after, a bit of back and forth, he's like, okay, let me see what I can do here. And, as Doc, who is commonly known as P.T. Barnum, was able to wave his magic wand, and next thing we know, we're signed to Atlantic Records, and it was really the best thing that could have happened to us. Because I can honestly say, I know for a fact, we all do, that things would have been much different had we been with Geffen. And that's no slight on Geffen. Their history speaks for itself. Guns N' Roses and Whitesnake and so on and so forth. And but it just wasn't for us. And so I'm very thankful that the powers that be above us were able to sort of rescue us from what might have been an ill-advised situation.
Was there ever a temptation for the band to move to LA? Because a lot of bands were doing it at that time. Because everyone thought that you needed to go on the Sunset Strip in order to get signed.
Yeah, never. We wore our New Jersey roots like a badge of courage. And we love New York City. We love being in such close proximity to it. We would spend a lot of time just as individuals and kids in New York City. So we were very well versed in the culture. And there's a lot going on in New York City. There's the Village, and then there was Alphabet City, and there's Midtown, and there's Hell's Kitchen, and there's the West End, there's the East End, or West Side and East Side, and so there's a lot of Chelsea, and there's a lot of different things going on there, and so it really, really broadens your scope of culture, and it really helps you to develop sort of a survivalist character, I mean, when you're going into the city at such an early age, like we were, and I'm talking about more like Rachel, Scotty, and I, because we were in close proximity, and Rob Affuso for that matter, as individuals before we had met each other. I mean, you gotta, it's survival mode, man, but it's great. Because you don't know any better. You don't know what neighborhoods you're walking into. And that's when 42nd Street was hookers and drugs, man. It was hookers and blow. It wasn't Disney, And so it was again, another education that is priceless. And so we never even thought about it. It was never even a consideration. It was almost like, oh yeah, LA, we've got friggin' New York, man, and we're from Jersey, and so we and still do. We're very proud. I love being from New Jersey, man. We catch a lot of shit, but we take it and spit it right back.
How much different did the band sound prior to Sebastian joining?
Well, we got a better singer in the band. So, and that was the whole point. We had a singer in the band, and he just wasn't cutting it. We had the opportunity on the Slippery When Wet tour, Bon Jovi Slippery When Wet tour, to go out and do the first 3 shows of that tour. And I believe that was in 87 in Pennsylvania. And after those shows, Doc McGee came back into our dressing room. And we were on a high, we had just got done playing in front of, I forget what it was. Like at that point, it was just like 8,000 people or something like 8,000 people. Stabler Arena and another place. And we were like, oh man, now we're going to be on our way. And Doc just told us straight up, man, he's like, love your songs, love the name of the band, love the attitude, love your look, but your singer's got to go. And we were like, oh, no. And that, he was, Doc preached the gospel, so we looked at him as like, if he says it, look where he's at, look where we're at. We better heed his advice. So we spent the next 9 months auditioning and searching, and finally, through some friends, and ironically at Mark Weiss's wedding, we were able to. There was a bunch of people there, and Sebastian was one of the people. He was singing in another band at the time, and out of Detroit, and Madam X. And so he was there. Got up on stage with Zakk Wylde and a friend of Mark Weiss's, as well as Mr. and Mrs. Bon Jovi, who happened to be at the wedding, all got in touch with us and said, "You got to check out this singer. He can really sing. I mean, his hair is, 8 feet tall and everything like that. I mean, he's a great singer." And so we were able to reach out to him through a guy by the name of Dave Feld, who was Mark Weiss's best friend, and through Mark, and gave him the lowdown of what's going on, and is this something you'd be interested in? And we sent him like a 3 or 4 song demo and flew him down to New Jersey, and went, and as soon as he landed, we ended up going to a nightclub and getting up on stage with this club that we pretty much, the owners basically gave us full reign of the club. We could do whatever we want. And it had 2 floors, and the floor upstairs was this big club, 1,000 or so more people, and bottom downstairs was a couple hundred. And there was a band playing downstairs, and we already had a following in Jersey and in New York and Pennsylvania. And so the band was kind enough to let us go on stage, and we went up and played like three of those songs, and we were terrible. It sounded awful, but you could just tell that this was it. And Rachel got on a microphone and announced, meet Sebastian. This is our new singer. And then we started making our plans and started rehearsing in Rachel's parents' garage again. And it was, he made the songs sound better because it was better vocals and his energy. And I think that all of that combined, we became a situation where the whole was greater than the sum of its parts type of thing. And I think when you have that in anything in life, in business, and in sports, and in music, that means that you have something special going on. And we did. And I mean, we were very hesitant in the sense that we didn't want to be pumping our chest out or anything like that and being, arrogant. We were very careful to make sure, like, okay, what we're feeling here, like this whole thing of how good this feels as a band, as a rock band. And trust me, there was some tension in there right from the beginning, and very small, but and that grew, and as we grew. But what we were playing.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
Get business done with the new American Express Graphite Business Cash Unlimited card. With unlimited 2% cash back on all eligible purchases, unlimited 5% cash back on flights and prepaid hotels booked through American Express Travel Online, and a flexible spending capacity that can grow with your business, you'll have the confidence to keep building. Apply today and earn a welcome offer of $1,500 cash back after you spend $50,000 in qualifying purchases on your new card within the first 6 months of card membership. Terms apply. Learn more at go.amex/graphite.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast instead of doom scrolling? Smart move. Another smart move? Getting help from one of State Farm's 19,000 local agents when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
As a band, and what we had created musically just was, okay, these are the way that we heard these songs, as songwriters. It was, we had hoped that everybody else would feel the same way that we did. And thankfully, the people that we trusted, their opinions and whatnot, they did. They were like, okay, I think you guys are onto something now, for real. Like now you might be able to play ball. And when we went out and we just started playing all the clubs again and killing it. I mean, we went out and we played every show like it was Madison Square Garden, and that's what you're supposed to do. And regardless of how many people were there, no matter where we went. I mean, we played to 6 people in like it was either Rochester or Syracuse early on. And we had a blast. We played that show like our lives depended on it. And we always had an attitude, even to this day, that, you play for the people that are there, not for the people who are missing out. And we just built our following and our reputation on like a weekly basis, and it was the focus of everybody's day 24/7. Like, now everybody was invested in this thing. Everybody had the same goal in mind, and everybody was willing to sacrifice what needed to be sacrificed in order to reach that goal. And the goal was always kept a little bit out of reach. So we kept moving the bar further and further and further. And that, we would film every show, and we would watch every show, and we'd critique ourselves every show. And we just started, honing in on who Skid Row were to be. It was very exciting, those beginning stages, I think, for any band are always extremely exciting. And it doesn't come without angst, and it doesn't come without, tension and disagreements. But at that particular point in your life, you're 21, 22 years old, that stuff gets buried by your will and your ambition, and your belief that no one's going to stop us. No one's going to stop us. It's not going to happen. And that wasn't like a manufactured belief. That was something that we all felt inherently. That once this thing was together, there was nothing that was going to stop us except ourselves. And that's really what happened. We stopped ourselves.
You guys recorded your first album in Lake Geneva, which, for those that don't know, is about an hour outside of Chicago, hour 10. And it's right up the road from, in my opinion, the best live venue in the Midwest at the time, which was Alpine Valley.
Oh.
And it saddens me that no one plays there anymore. I don't know if it's because they didn't latch on to the Ticketmaster Live Nation thing, but that place used to be the place to go see concerts, because when you went there, you got there about noon and you cooked out, you grilled because it was on private property. Cops weren't going to bother you. You'd be in high school. You'd be drunk by 3. And you always knew the new guys that were there who'd never been there before, because they couldn't make it into the show because they didn't know how to pace themselves. So, but Alpine Valley was awesome. In Lake Geneva, what was that experience like, going from Jersey into this? It's kind of like a resort town, more or less.
Well, talk about being naive. Our management said, we don't want you guys to record in New Jersey or New York because you're going to get distracted by all your idiot friends and whatnot, and New York City. And you're not, we need you guys focused, like completely 100% laser beam focus. And we were like, awesome. and the idea of getting out of going somewhere new. We didn't know. Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, to us, it could have been, Portugal. We had no idea, and then we get there, and it was, we start realize that it is a resort, which is, wow, this is pretty cool. And the recording studio is in the end of this hotel, and that used to be an old Playboy place, and it was now called the Americana, and it had like a small convention center attached to it, and wow, we could record drums in there, and it was. We didn't know about Alpine Valley right off the bat, but we came to find out about it really quick. And so there was many weekends where we were able to make a trek over there and see some great, great shows. And turned out that a lot of the bands that played Alpine Valley would stay at the Americana. And so we would run into these bands at the bar but it was summertime. I mean, we basically arrived, I think, on July 8th, of 88. And we left, I want to say September. We might have left on like my birthday or something like September 16th or a little bit before that. But it was after Labor Day. And talk about going from this massive, unbelievable summertime playground to The Shining. It was incredible. We were like, whoa, Rachel and I, because we stayed back for the mix. And so we were there for the whole thing. But Michael Wagner, who produced the record, who is our brother, did just such an amazing job of corralling these children, these 5 children, and keeping us laser focused on the job at hand. And so our days, we weren't out by the pool or going, to the amusement park or whatever. We weren't doing any of that. We weren't going to, the only thing that we could get away with was going to the hotel bar. And that's only if we didn't work past its closing time, so he kept us laser focused but being able to go out to Alpine Valley, and then eventually being able to play there a couple times. The people there that we grew to know were fantastic. The people at the Americana and at the studio were just great, great people. But we found out that not only was it a place where we could remain focused, which that's certainly true, but it also had these 2 championship golf courses on it. And both of our managers at the time, Doc and Scott, were huge golf fanatics. So we were like, oh, I get it. We're in a studio at, 11 a.m. noon going till, 1 in the morning. And they're out, on the golf course playing their second round of golf for the day at like 3 in the afternoon. We're like, all right, see how this works. Okay. It was fine. It was a beautiful place. Like I said, we were treated great. No one knew who we were. We didn't have any record out. We were just a group of kids in there, or young adults, and attempting to make a decent record. But everything felt really good. Like everything. We had some disagreements about certain things, and certain things didn't feel necessarily correct in each individual's gut, but we were able to get there where we need to be. Being in a band, you've got to compromise, and you've got to figure out a way to always attempt to put the betterment of the band above your own ego. And that's not easy sometimes for a lot of people. But Michael Wagner was able to, like I said, really, really hone in on that and keep us really all in check. Because when he saw it get out of hand a little bit, that he's a German with a big voice, man, and he will yell and you will listen, and he's intimidating. So that played a very positive factor in getting that particular record done in the way that it was done. And I have great fond memories of doing that record. There was a lot of firsts in creating that album. And then you walk away, or the mix is done, and you're in this, Rachel and I are in this hotel that's empty. And it's such a weird feeling because you have all this going on all around you all summer long. And then that's all gone. And you're in like I said, the Shining. And it's like, whoa, this is creepy. I hope this isn't a sign of things to come. And then we just geared up for, the Bon Jovi tour was already booked, which was just an amazing thing to look forward to. And that started in January, and the record was being released in January. So we had like 3 months to do everything in preparation for the release of the record, photo shoots and play some local shows and things like that. And, but it was, it went by really fast, but it also, when you're in that moment, it seems like it's taking forever because you want that record out. And but you're also terrified because you're like, okay, what happens if the record goes out and it stiffs like crazy and no one gives a shit? It's like, oh no, then what?
Well, that leads to my next question.
Every band goes through that.
Yeah, well, that leads to my next question. Did you feel that this album was going to explode in the way that it did when you were recording it?
No, I mean, you hope. You always hope. Like I said, going on what I said before, I mean, everybody wants to sell a bazillion records, and everybody thinks that they've got the goods to do it. But when you get into that thing where you're actually, someone goes, okay, let's see if you've got it. It's like, oh, shit. Let's see if we got it. We were all very, very confident in the songs and in our ability as a band together to perform them, to make them the best that they could be, and not walk away from the recording going, I wish we would have done that. I wish we would have done this. I think we walked away from it, all of us going, yeah, that's the record, man. And to answer your question, no. I had no idea what that would even look like. I know what it looked like for somebody else being, seeing John, Bon Jovi have monumental success with Slippery When Wet. So I saw what it looked like for, one of my best friends. But none of us, and we were able to see that, none of us, if we thought that way, like, oh, this thing is going to sell 3 million. This thing is going to do this. This thing's we would have been fools, we would have been, and that's just, I mean, I could speak for Rachel and Scotty, because I've known them and I'm closest to them and I've known them the longest. That's just not in our DNA. That's just not how we were brought up. And, we were brought up in a manner that life is a gift, and anything that good that comes your way is a gift. It's not a birthright. So being able to make a record, that's a gift, man. getting signed to a record deal. That's a gift. That's not a birthright. I'm not owed that. Did we earn it? Sure. Yeah, we worked our asses off and continued to work our asses off after that. And so we earned it. We earned the chance to make a record and the chance to sell records. But no, we never could have imagined. And I think, it was, the first day of the Bon Jovi tour. No one knew who we were. We were playing, I believe, in Reunion Arena in Dallas, Texas. And I mean, there was nobody in the audience when we went on. No one had heard of us outside New Jersey and New York. So we were like, ooh, this is a wake-up call.
What?
But we were prepared for it. We were prepared for it mentally. We knew it was going to be a grind. We knew that people knew of our association with Bon Jovi and would probably, not for everybody, but for a lot of people, that might be a negative connotation. Like, oh, here they are. They've got, we got given back. We got given this opportunity because of, some sort of nepotism or whatever. And we didn't earn it. So we knew we would have to go out there every night and prove ourselves. And that was a great mindset for us to have because it was the truth. We did have to, and we still do. It hasn't changed. So I don't think anybody even I can't speak for anybody else. It didn't hit me until about a year later that people know who we are. It literally was like a year later. It was December of '89, like 11 months after the record had come out. And that's when it hit me that, oh, like, okay, things are a little different now.
It's amazing because there's so much going on, and success. A lot of success comes with timing. I mean, you can release the greatest music ever, and if it's not the right time, I always, I mentioned "Welcome to the Jungle" by Guns N' Roses. When that was first released, it fell flat. It didn't do anything.
Yeah.
They had to re-release it like 8 or 9 months later,
Yep.
and then it did what it did. That MTV was such an impactful thing, an impactful tool for a lot of bands at that time. And obviously Bon Jovi being what they had become with Slippery When Wet into New Jersey. What had more of an impact, in your opinion, MTV or your friendship with John and the help and the mentorship of Bon Jovi?
Well, from a visibility standpoint, reaching the most amount of people that you could, MTV, and radio, terrestrial radio for sure. But the initial, people don't realize that, we were being taught very valuable lessons by people that we trust. John being one of them, and Richie, and people that we even, and also by other musicians too. But they were the two that really invested themselves in us as a band. We were all friends, and John and his band had this incredible success. And wanted to share that, like, okay. And he always said to me, from the time that he got a record deal, it was like, hey man, like if you ever become part of a really cool band or, you put together a really cool band, I'll help you out in any way I can, but, it's got to be really good. It can't be average. And so, there were a lot of times in my involvement with a lot of other bands where it was like, no, that's not even close, dude. And so there, it wasn't like this was, well, this sucks, but we're going to help you anyway. It was never like that. It was always like, well, you guys are close, but not there yet, in our opinion. And you take that for what it's worth. And I was like, we all were like, okay. It was frustrating. It was heartbreaking. But thankfully, it wasn't debilitating. And so, but it was inspiring. And that's the most important thing. It's like, okay, we got to work harder. And Rachel and I would sit in his parents' house, in his bedroom, in this other room, which was like a spare room with green paneling in it. And we would sit there until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning working on it and working on these songs and get an hour or two of sleep and have to go to work and either, our day jobs or either, come back home from that and either, jam with the band or go right back into that room after eating a Spam sandwich and making a pot of coffee and going right into it, but that's what, I mean, our that story isn't dissimilar to 1,000 other bands from back in the day. And so, but that was our story. And that was, nothing was handed to us on a silver platter. I can guarantee you that. We had to earn everything that was, every opportunity that was granted us. They say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And that's, we were prepared. We were prepared for the opportunity.
Well, to go with your point, if anyone dismisses that and says, well, yeah, but, the songs still stand the test of time, are still great. And if they weren't that great, and the idea of Bon Jovi helping you, even though maybe you weren't that good, quote unquote, the songs would not resonate today like they still do. We wouldn't be having a conversation about the 35th anniversary of the debut album.
Oh, no doubt.
If the music wasn't that good. At the end of the day, it's about the music. And the proof is how these songs still connect with people. And the music, even after this, still connects with people. So, again, to piggyback off your thought, if someone says, well, you had this thing with Bon Jovi, if you guys weren't worth it, you guys would have had the one album, been a one and done, in my opinion.
I think what also gets lost sometimes in a conversation such as this is that all those things aside, the core partnership of Rachel and I, if that doesn't exist, there is nothing else. Like if we don't sit there and meet in a music store and decide that, hey, let's try writing some songs together and have enough faith and build enough trust in one another that, yeah, like I could be partners with this guy. And like, it's not like we went to high school together. It was nothing like that. We met, I guess serendipitously, at Garden State Music in Toms River. And I got a job there, and a few days later he walked in, and I'm like, that guy is a rock star and I'm going to get to know him. And so I was never shy about networking, if you will. And I just went up to him one day and introduced myself and, dropped all these names that I had, that I knew in the music business, some true, some not true. And I guess he sort of looked at me like, well, even if this guy is full of shit, he's, pretty ballsy. And I loved his attitude. And I already had asked people in the music store who he was, and this bass player who's got his own band. And I said, well, he goes, yeah, I'm the songwriter for my band. And I said, well, me too. And why don't we sit there and get together? And we did. And it was a really fun experience. Let's do this again. And that kept happening. So, and it still happens to this day. So the whole thing about it is without that component, and obviously putting the rest of the band together, getting Scotty and Rob and Sebastian in the band, without all those elements, none of this happens. You could have the greatest friends in the world, the most powerful friends in the world. But if you can't back it up with something, then it doesn't matter. And so that's one of the things that I don't know if it exists anymore in modern music creativity, but it existed for us, which was having people sit there and tell you it's good, but it's not great. Go make it great. That was I think out of everything advice wise that we may have gotten, that was the biggest thing, man. When we thought like, okay, we got it, we would find out from people who had been doing it longer and doing it better that guess what? You're close, but you ain't there yet. It's like, wow.
So you have this debut album. You have these gargantuan hits on there. Youth Gone Wild, 18 Life. I remember you play the Moscow Music Peace Festival. You're touring all over. And then you decide to go release a metal record. Slave to the Grind. And I remember getting the cassette when it came out, and I only heard Monkey Business at the time. And I'm like, oh, this is a pretty cool tune. I put the cassette in. The first track is the title track. And I'm like, and I had to rewind it. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, this is badass. This is awesome. This is a metal record. And not to say there weren't those elements on the debut album, but this was just in your face, like just a powerful punch to the gut. Slave to the Grind.
Well, I have a lot of fond memories of that record as well. And, we were, there's always that sophomore curse. And so I can remember we had written a few songs after we were done touring. We had parts of Monkey Business written on the road during the Aerosmith tour, but it wasn't a finished song. And we had written GTFO on a plane flight to Australia at the very, very end of touring. And that was that was really the only song that was written on the road, if you will. When we would have breaks on tour, we would go home for a week. Rachel and I would keep working. We would keep writing, or we would be up at the record label doing radio and calling, you used to call the radio stations, the MDs and the PDs, and, beg them to play your music, and sure, I'll play in your golf tournament, things like that. Sure, I'll cut the ribbon. But we got done touring, and it was amazing. But with anything in life, there's certain things that you experience that you go, well, man, that particular aspect of this whole thing kind of sucked. And your viewpoint is now from a world traveling perspective, as opposed to, being a kid from Jersey. You're still a kid from Jersey, but you've had a chance to see the world, and experience all these different cultures and see beautiful people and beautiful places, but also see some stuff that, could have made you, that wasn't so great, and maybe experience stuff in the music business, especially, that you went, ooh, that sucks, and that helps sort of mold who you are 2 years later after or 2.5 years later after recording your first record. We were out on the road 17 months, I think 16, 17 months. No, longer. Yeah. Yeah. 16 or 17 months. And so we came back and we were obviously everyone's a different person, and you're stuck in that tour bus with each other, 12 people on a bus for, 2.5 years. I mean, a year and a half, excuse me. And again, this is nothing new. A lot of bands go through this and they suffer from the same sort of dilemma that gets created out of that. People change, man. Success changes people. Some in amazing ways, some in not so amazing ways. And then there's a different narrative that comes into play between the 5 members of the band after seeing what was created and seeing how that played out over the course of however long. So then you go into writing the next record, and your viewpoint is a little different and your perspective is a little different, and you have a harder edge to you. At least we did. We had a harder edge. And look, my influences personally have always leaned on the heavier side. Like, I was a huge, and am a huge, new wave of British heavy metal fan, and a huge Iron Maiden fan still to this day, and Judas Priest, and Motorhead, and so on and so forth, as well as, Van Halen and Aerosmith, and all those. Oh, did I? There we go. All those bands that I mentioned earlier growing up, they all sort of percolate within each of us, and how we interpret all of that and then put that out into the universe helps determine your participation in the songwriting process. And so what happened with the next record, as soon as we were getting down to it, it just naturally felt like it was going to be a heavier record. And because I think a lot of people who saw us live saw us as being heavier live than on our first record. And that's how it felt. We felt that we were like a heavier, more aggressive band live than maybe came across on the first record. And that's no diss on the first record. The first record is exactly what it should be, man. Exactly. And so when it came time to Slave to the Grind, it just was, again, you're a few years old, a couple of years older, and you definitely have a different outlook on life, good and bad. And those experiences are vital to forming, the creative nature of where you're going to go as a songwriter. And the riffs that we were coming up with were just, they were naturally heavier. We didn't want to rewrite I Remember You. And that was something that was intentional. We didn't want to rewrite that. And we wanted to feel like we were moving forward. I still don't think, and again, I could be very much in the minority here. I don't think it's a heavy metal record. I think it's a hard rock record with a bunch of heavy metal songs on it. So be that as it may, none of that matters to me anyway. What matters to me is that I'm really, really proud of everything that we created on that record. Really, really proud, as I am, to be quite honest, with all of our records. I'm very, very proud because, for better or for worse, you created them. You helped create them. You helped create them with people that, that you love and that you care about, and how the public responds to it It's just that's out of our control. I can't control that. So just the same thing with the first record. You do your very, very absolute best. And how the public responds, it's just going to be what it is.
I think, and hindsight's always 2020. But when you look at Slave to the Grind coming off of the debut, the music world was changing as well, from 89 into the early 90s, into the mid 90s. And I think two thoughts on this, or one thought and a couple of questions, is I think it was important for bands like Skid Row that took a detour, took a pivot from what was happening in the late 80s, because unbeknownst to all of us, that scene was about to end, and it was becoming a little bit more edgier with stuff like Alice in Chains and Soundgarden, and that was all coming. And I think it was
Pantera,
another one, yeah. And I think it was a smart move. I don't think it was an intentional move. I think it was just what you guys were feeling, but I think it was a smart move to embrace it, because that's what where the music world was going. My questions on that are, did the label push back, and were you guys nervous about going into a different direction?
Thank God. And I give Atlantic Records all the credit in the world. No, they did not push back. I remember, Jason Flom saying, you very well might lose a lot of your female audience with this one, but I love the record. And, I think that was the general consensus, maybe. I don't know if they had the legs to stick with that record for as long as that we needed them to, but yet we were able to still tour on that record for 22 months around the world. And so there were certain things that happened that didn't go in our favor. And some of that stuff happened too with MTV, and no fault of theirs, all our fault. MTV had this block for us, like a 4-week block that they were going to really, really push. We were doing a video for Quicksand Jesus, and they were going to really, really dedicate those 4 weeks to breaking that song. And then the next up was Bruce Springsteen after that. So they had this dedicated to Bruce Springsteen after our 4 weeks. Well, we went and shot a video for Quicksand Jesus that may have been the biggest piece of shit that anyone has ever had the displeasure of seeing, and spent a lot of money on it. And it was so disheartening that Scott McGee didn't even want to show it to us when he got the first cut of it. And there was no saving it. We were all like that. I think that was the first time that we had a huge, after the first record and the success of the first record and whatnot, aside from some incidents that happened during the first, couple tours. But as far as from a record standpoint, this was probably the first true setback that we had, because we had to shoot a whole new video. And by the time we delivered it to MTV, they were like, the window's closed, guys. And we were heartbroken. We missed our
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel, maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
Get business done with the new American Express Graphite Business Cash Unlimited card. With unlimited 2% cash back on all eligible purchases. unlimited 5% cash back on flights and prepaid hotels booked through American Express Travel Online, and a flexible spending capacity that can grow with your business. You'll have the confidence to keep building. Apply today and earn a welcome offer of $1,500 cash back after you spend $50,000 in qualifying purchases on your new card within the first 6 months of card membership. Terms apply. Learn more at go.amex/graphite.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast instead of doom scrolling? Smart move. Another smart move? Getting help from one of State Farm's 19,000 local agents when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Opportunity. So it was, they were playing it at like 11 o'clock at night, and it just didn't have the force behind it that it would have had we been able to make that particular window. And so it was kind of, the record kind of just went downhill from there as far as from a sales standpoint. It didn't crash and burn. It didn't go up. It just went down, and quicker than we had hoped. But that's life. We were still able to go out and tour as much as we did. And, we toured with Guns N' Roses quite a bit, and we were able to go headline, and we had Pantera with us, and we had Soundgarden with us. And, so it was really those 22 months that we were out there they were magical in so many ways. I don't know if I guess there's a regret there in a sense that we blew a really, really big opportunity with the medium that was, instrumental in breaking almost every band and helping them to achieve success. And whether it would have happened or not, whether it would have made the record blow up even more, I don't know. Again, that would have been for the public to decide, but at least it would have had the visible chance to. Like, people would have definitely seen that video and would have responded to it whatever way they chose. And that's all you can really ask for is the opportunity. And the opportunity was there waiting for us, and we blew it.
Fast forward to now. Lzzy Hale has been fronting you guys in the last few dates. It's very exciting. It's creating a buzz around both Skid Row and Lzzy, and it's cool to see a artist from a different generation performing these songs. What's it like for you? How did this all come together?
Lzzy and Joe Hottinger have been...
I just had Joe on, actually.
What's that?
I just had Joe on.
It's one of my favorite people in the world. They both are.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people in the world. He's got such a great sense of humor. It's exactly like ours. And so he fits in, and we fit in with him perfectly. It's like, it's hilarious. Rachel was living in Nashville, and so were they. Rachel had introduced me to them when I went down to visit one time to write and stuff. And actually, Rachel had thrown a birthday party for me, and they showed up and met, and we had actually jammed together with them at a benefit. But Rachel became really, really close with the both of them, and they remained friends throughout all these years. Since I want to say 2016. And when the situation occurred with Eric, and we knew that, this was as great as it was for 2 years, this was necessary what was going to happen for his health. And we had to figure out what we wanted to do. And so one of the ideas was, uh, let's see if we can, maybe we can get some guest singers in and go out and do some shows with some guest singers. And Rachel goes, well, what about Lzzy Hale? We were all like, oh my God, that would be amazing. Cause she's amazing. She's a star. She's an undeniable talent. And so, but we're like, those guys are always busy and they do nothing but tour and write and record. And so, he goes, well, all we can do is ask. And so he reaches out to her and she agrees. And we're like, what? And so, had to go through a couple of things to make sure, that what her schedule with Halestorm was and whether management was cool with it. And everybody was great with it. And so we were able to coordinate these 4 shows. And, no one truly knew how it was going to go. It was obviously a completely different look for Skid Row. It was something different for her because, she was saying, this is the first time I'm going out just being a front person, without a guitar or anything like that. Wow. That's pretty gutsy of you. It's brave. I like that, and so, we were able to confirm these 4 particular shows, and we just rehearsed the day before the first show, which was last Thursday, and it was awesome. And she's such a pro, and she did her homework and knew those songs and studied our live set. And it was like, you really are like a special performer and talent. Like, you really are. Like, there's a reason why Halestorm is so successful. They write great songs. They're a great band, and she's a great front person. And so how those 3 things are undeniable. No wonder why they do the business that they do. But being on stage with her and just seeing her own those songs, I wanted to play for 4 hours, each night. I wanted to pull a Springsteen each night, because that moment, I believe that we all cherished that whole experience. And then, she's the type of person that comes off stage and goes, I'll do better tomorrow. It's like, are you kidding me? You were great. You're absolutely great. Like, it's just very humbling that just the fact that she not only agreed to do it, but did so in such an exuberant manner, oh my God, I would love to do this, and all the kindness that she has exhibited in social media and with different press outlets and whatnot it's for me, it's been overwhelming and it's such a gift. One of those things that, I don't know if you expect anything like that, like this, at this point in one's career. Like, we've been really, really lucky. Like, we've had monumental moments throughout our career, and this is one of them. And if there's any way it could happen, I would love to be able to do more shows with her because she just brings out something different in Skid Row, obviously. And I think people who saw those 2 shows look at the band a little bit differently. And, and I'm thankful for that because that's because of her. And to see the way people responded to her, and she had her own contingency there too. Don't think it's all Skid Row fans. She had her Halestorm people there as well. And they were great. They were very accepting of this. And I'm thankful for that, because sometimes that could go completely the opposite. Like, she's my hero and she's cheating on the band. And you know what I mean? Like, I get it though, but I found it to be really, really, I use the word humbling quite a bit, because that's what it is. And I'm so grateful to have been able to experience that with a group of people that I absolutely love and adore. I think that, again, if we could do more shows at some point, great. If it doesn't happen, we're really lucky that we got to do these 4.
Are there talks about adding another singer at some point? Have you guys targeted anybody?
Haven't targeted anybody. I mean, yeah. I mean, if we want to continue as Skid Row, we're going to have to get another singer. We haven't targeted anybody. There's a lot of great singers out there, but Lzzy just raised the bar, man. And Eric is a great singer. He raised the bar as well, and Lzzy just came in here and just really raised the bar and showed us, another side of what this band could be. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be a male singer in Skid Row. The options are wide open. And like I said, there's so much talent out there. But we just want to make sure that we make the right choice and that we can bring the band to another level. That's the hope.
Well, I know you've been always forthcoming about my next question. And obviously, because there's an opening in the band, it's, people are going to wonder. And I know you're already shaking your head. But has anything changed on your thoughts about your former singer rejoining the band?
Well, I mean, the answer has been the same for, 20,000 years now. It's not going to happen. And I say the same thing every time. I'm thankful that people have such an interest in wanting to see that happen. But I also have to reiterate that, this is about being happy in the situation that you're in. So I'll speak for myself personally. First of all, I do need to say something too, is that the reason that this isn't happening is because there's 3 of us, myself, Scotty, and Rachel, who've had conversations about this, and we've all been on the same page that we don't want to go down that road again. We don't. Rachel has taken a beating over this through the years. He's the one who's been blamed for this. Oh, it's Rachel's ego. It's this and that. No, that's a load of bullshit. That is not true. And I feel bad because he's really, really had to shoulder that blame and has never said anything derogatory or anything like that. But you know what? The truth of the matter is that Rachel, Scotty, and myself have continually felt the same way, that we enjoy being happy in this band, and we're really happy. It's been such a great experience for the last however 35 years, everything, all the ups, all the downs, everything. But we just don't want to revisit that particular aspect of our history. I love the songs, love a lot of the memories, not fond of some of the memories, but just as individuals and as a collective, that's just how we feel. So this is not on Rachel, and this has nothing to do with anyone's ego or anything like that. So that's just got to be clear. Again, For anyone to sit there and make assumptions that this is, Rachel Bolan saying, nope, it's not. It's the three of us. And we've all collectively sat there and, just said that we don't want to do it. We just don't want to do it. And we wish everybody all the best. I mean, we've been just ripped apart by ex-members of the band and stuff, ripped apart. Some really shitty stuff said about all of us. And we just choose not to. Sorry, my cat. We just choose, whatever. It's just not who I am, not who we are. We won't go down that road. We just want to play music and be happy. This has really never been about a monetary aspect of things because, it's been very, it's known that we've been offered a good amount of money to do shows together and to reunite and whatever. But it's just never been about the money, man. I choose my happiness, my willingness to continue to be, a really good friend to my best friends and a really good husband and a really good dad and bandmate and person. I don't want to endanger that in any way. So the people that we choose to play with, those choices are made in order to keep those particular things in line for all of us. Hope that makes sense.
Oh, it does. Absolutely. Because you mentioned prior to that question, the whole experience with Lzzy and, the glow you had when you were talking about it. The unknown, well, I don't know if it's not an unknown, but what is known is that if you do reunite, that glow goes away. And did the experience with Lzzy kind of cement your belief in like, hey, this is truly what we're doing is the right thing for all of us? Because of what we know with the experience with Lzzy, what it can be like and what the pleasure and happiness we get out of doing this, we want to maintain that.
Well, I think that, we've felt this way. I don't know if it cemented it, reaffirmed it.
Yeah, that's probably
but we trust us trust me when I say if we felt differently, we would get on a phone and make those moves that might be necessary in order to do something, but we have no desire to be honest. I love our history. Don't get me wrong. I'm proud of what we were able to create together. I'm really proud. That will never change. But I'm, again, I'm proud of all of it. It's afforded us all a life of music. It's, I have great memories of every sort of aspect of our career. Even, even when there was a period of time when we were playing to, 100 people somewhere in the Midwest, and it would have been soul crushing to anybody else who had had the heights that we have had. And it wasn't soul crushing because that's not who we are as individuals and as a collective. We power on, man. We get through it. And because at the end of the day, I go to sleep at night and I go, well, shit, I just got to play songs that I helped write in front of people, whether it be 100 or next week it might be 10,000. And then a week after that, it might be 250. And then a week after that, it might be however. It's like, however it is, as long as we feel in our hearts that we are moving forward but we are embracing and loving what we're doing, and getting paid for it. Holy crap.
Last question about the album, the debut album. Is there any physical anniversary edition planned for the debut?
You know what? Yeah, you know what? I mean, that would be awesome. Atlantic Records and has changed so much. They're not even a rock label anymore. Like the only thing that rock over there is Halestorm and Shinedown. All the people that were involved with Skid Row are long gone. The people at Rhino have been kind, but it's not like anyone is going out of their way to say, I really think we need to do this or that. So people in our management company have started, I've had conversations about let's really do something because, let's face it, there still is a segment of the population out there who want to celebrate that era of music and a bunch of those particular records that may have come out at that particular time. So yeah, I mean, I would love to. But unfortunately, the control in those things often lies with, the label that you were signed with. They're not really in the business of letting your masters revert back to you, because if that was the case, if we owned our masters, it would be a whole different ballgame.
What's next for you guys? What's the plan? Any more touring this year after the whole Lzzy thing? And obviously, you're going to need a singer to do that. But is there anything in the works? Anything coming up?
We're going to take our time. We have a live album coming out that we did with Eric in London. So that's going to be coming out in the next couple months. So that'll at least have, it's kind of a celebration of what we were able to do with Eric in a short time that we were together. And, obviously we all wished it could have gone on longer. And we wish him all the best in the world. Of course, his health is obviously the most important thing. But while we were together, we got, it was a lot of fun and we were able to do some really cool stuff and creating this live record was one of them. So hopefully it's our first one that we've ever done. And hopefully people will respond to it in a positive way. And in the interim, we'll go do, a couple more shows with Lzzy. And hopefully we can do more. And if not, like I said, I'm so thankful and grateful for what we've been able to do with her, and thankful to Joe and Hottinger and the guys in Halestorm for being really cool and respectful and being supportive of this. And, that's what's so great about making friends with, other musicians and stuff like that, is when you can collaborate on something and something like this can occur out of nowhere, completely unexpected and, really, really, really special. And I'm going to carry it with me, as I'm sure we all are, as just one of those truly special moments in the history of our band.
Any thought of collaborating with any of the, fellow younger artists like Lzzy that have been around for the last decade or two, the artists that have been inspired and influenced by you?
Would love to. It would be like a really, really cool thing. And maybe this, what we've been able to do at Lzzy, maybe that will start the ball rolling for stuff like that. There's a lot of people whom we respect and admire. And, at the end of the day, we're fans. We're fans of music and fans of other bands. And, we still go out to shows to see, a couple weeks ago, I went out to see Queensryche and they did the EP and the first record, Warning, and man, I loved it. I loved it so much, and got to speak with them afterwards and just tell them how, what those records meant to me, because those records meant something to me and still do. That EP, that was formative for me, and seeing the picture on the back of that and seeing how young they were inspired me to, that, man, I really might be able to do this. Look at these guys. Look how young they are. And then I put that record on. I'm like, oh my God. You hear Queen of the Reich right out of the box. It's like, really? Like, holy shit. Like, that's really something else, man. And so, we still go out to shows and see other bands when we can. And, so being able to work with other artists like that, that maybe have dug our band and would be interested in going out and singing these songs at some point. That would be great. That'd be great. What a compliment. What a pat on the back that is.
Dave, it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much for the time. I know we ran over, but
it's all good. I loved it, so I have no problem with that.
No, it was fantastic. It was great to talk with you and revisit this album with you and talk about all the things that went into it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Jay. I appreciate you, giving me this platform, and it was a great walk down a lot of great memories.
I appreciate it. Everyone, that is Dave Snake Sabo from Skid Row. I am Jay Scott from the Hook Rocks. Thanks again for listening. All Skid Row's links will be in the show notes. So when you're done listening, just click on those links, see upcoming tour dates, get on their mailing list, do whatever it takes to keep up to date with the band. And don't forget to take care of each other, stay safe, and we will talk soon. Thank you.
Avatar: Fire and Ash is now streaming on Disney+. It's the film critics are calling the best Avatar yet.
Go, 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 go!
A true epic and completely jaw-dropping.
This is the only pure thing in this world.
Return to Pandora on Disney+.
It will be an adventure for the whole fam.
And watch the Oscar-winning phenomenon at home.
This is sick!
Avatar: Fire and Ash, now streaming on Disney+. Rated PG-13.